Senescence. Senescence is death, but it is a planned normal death. You know, I can spray a plant with a toxin, an herbicide, and kill it. That's not senescence unless I'm using a biological hormonal senescence type of killer. Um, if I cut a plant down, it's dying. That's not senescence. Senescence is a planned normal response, like when leaves die in the fall, when annual plants, they go through their annual life cycle and they die of uh, old age, if you will. That is senescence. So it is the aging process towards ultimate death. And so, as I mentioned, when leaves prepare for abscission or to cut off in the fall, all of the beautiful fall colors that are happening now, especially in other parts of the country. We have some really nice examples of fall colors in this area, but you got to look around and know where they are. We don't have the huge, vast forests of colors like they do in the Appalachian Mountains in the east. There is a hormone called abscisic acid. Abscise means to cut or cut off. And so abscisic acid is a senescence hormone that when it is being produced in response to the conditions of fall, it starts to prepare the leaves for being cut off. And it triggers the growth of two layers of cells at the base of the petiole on all of the leaves of these deciduous plants. So we're only talking dicots here, and maybe some gymnosperms. There are very few deciduous gymnosperms, but there are a couple. And so in the fall, as these deciduous plants are preparing to shed their leaves, there is a layer at the base of the leaf sealing off the base of the leaf, and another layer of cells sealing off the stem. So it's a protective layer for the stem. So when that leaf falls off, it's not an open wound. There is a new abscission layer of cells. And so when the cell at the base of the leaf and the cell at the base of the stem are formed, now it's a perfect place where the leaf can just fall off, leaving behind a nice layer of cells protecting that leaf scar that could have been an opening for fungus or bacteria to infect the exposed stem. So hormones control this leaf drop response. Now there is a hormone called cytokinin, and cytokinin, it promotes cell division. It not only helps keep cells alive and dividing and forming of this abscission layer, but it also it helps balance the abscission layer. You don't want the senescence response to get out of control. You want it to only do the amount of work that is necessary for the leaves to fall and not have a senescence that gets out of control. So again, it's a complicated process with multiple hormones. So this cytokinin keeps senescence in check, making sure there is new growth, maintains cell integrity. Certain external changes that would trigger this would be seasonal temperature changes and day length. Those are the two biggest triggers that would say, it's time to get ready, start kicking out some abscisic acid and get ready for fall. We're going to be dropping our leaves. So as this happens, the first thing that has to happen is all of the raw materials that the plant wants to take out of the leaves. Any easily movable food or resources, nutrients that can be mobilized quickly, get it out of the leaves, and then the abscission layer is going to form, and that you can't get any more out of the leaves. It's over. So as the day length and temperature changes are occurring in the fall, cytokinin levels are dropping to allow the abscisic acid effect to start doing its job. But the cytokinin doesn't go away. It's keeping that abscisic acid response in check. It's a balancing act. Fruit ripening. This again is a type of senescence. When a fruit is ripe, you want, as a plant, you want that to age and die and release the seeds, and fall on the forest floor, splat, and now you've got a nice moist fertilized spot for the seeds to start growing. Or maybe something is going to eat those fruits, get those seeds, and spread them around. Ethylene gas is a primary hormone. Ethylene is a gas, but it dissolves just like oxygen dissolves in water. Your fish are very grateful for that fact. Just because something is a gas doesn't mean it's not in a liquid form. It dissolved in a liquid form. So ethylene is a gas, but it's dissolved in the tissues and gets into the cells, and it helps ripen fruit. And ethylene is naturally produced in lots of our fruits, like bananas and apples and pineapples, lots and lots of things. I just had an experience last week where my son bought some apples and bananas, and I had them in a paper bag, and I wasn't really thinking about it for several days. I noticed it, and I grabbed an apple and ate it. I grabbed the banana and ate it, and just left them sitting in the bag together. And because apples are really good at producing ethylene gas, and ethylene is heavier than air, you get an accumulation, a higher ethylene concentration in the atmosphere in the bag. And so what happened? My bananas started getting freckly way faster than they normally do. I don't mind freckly bananas when I slice them onto my cereal anyway. That's how I often eat them, for breakfast over my cereal. And so you can use that technique. I want my bananas to ripen a little slower. Keep them in a cool place and put them on a little banana hanger, not in a bag, not in a bowl. A bowl accumulates ethylene because it's heavier than air, and the ethylene will build up. So what do? I put them on a banana hanger. That's why they have it. Or put them just out someplace where they're not in a bowl. I want to get them faster. I don't want a plastic bag, because bad things happen in a plastic bag with bananas and other fruits, but put them in a paper bag with a couple of ripe apples. And the apples and the bananas will, especially the apples, help the bananas ripen more rapidly. And we can do this artificially as well. There are ethylene generators. And I don't know if any of you have seen this in your experience. I know I've been to Mexico in the markets, and my ex-wife used to sell bananas and other things at the market when she was young. And what they would do is buy the bananas in bulk. So you buy several cases of bananas, stack the boxes up in a room, put a 5-gallon bucket of water in the room, and there were these tablets, kind of like jumbo Alka-Seltzer tablets, throw them into the bucket of water, and they would start fizzing like Alka-Seltzer tablets. And you shut the door and get out of the room. And what's happening is the ethylene gas is being produced. And it's just bubbling up out of the bucket, and you leave them there for the specified amount of time. You've gassed the bananas with ethylene, which is no different than the ethylene they would produce anyway. You're just producing them quicker to kick them into ripening mode. And then you open up the door, let them air out, and then start selling your bananas. So then when somebody buys your bananas, they'll be ripe in a reasonable amount of time. Now, tomatoes also do the same thing, but some of you might have bad experiences with tomatoes. Tomatoes tasting like crap, and organic tomatoes are better, which has been debunked many times. There is no difference in taste of organic versus conventionally grown tomatoes. The difference in tomatoes is variety, And sometimes the organic tomatoes, they might spend a little more time thinking about flavor, and so they might pick a variety that has better flavor. But it's the variety, it's not whether it was grown conventional or organic. And the other issue is when they are grown. A lot of organic products, not all of them, not most of them, but still a significant percentage of organic produce is produced in smaller quantities. And they are sold, they're picked ripe and brought immediately to market at the farmer's market or something else. And if they're picked closer to ripening, it changes everything, because a tomato gets all of its flavor components, the most important flavor components, right at the time when it starts turning pink, that first change in color. That's when all the flavor, the wonderful flavor of a fresh homegrown tomato is in there if you let it get pink on the vine. But if you let it get pink on the vine, you're going to have bruised, damaged fruit. You're not going to get it to market in large production environments like you would get for going to a grocery store. It's almost impossible. It's too soft for large scale harvest and transportation. And so they pick them green before the flavor is in the tomato, and they stick them in the trucks. They gas them with the ethylene. Nothing dangerous about the ethylene, but now you have a tomato that turned red because it was gassed, but it never had the flavor components in it because it was taken off the vine before the flavor was there. And you'll never get the flavor there. And so we've become used to tomatoes, many of us, that kind of taste like styrofoam, or they're just kind of bland. They don't have the flavor that they should. So if you do farmers market, maybe they're doing vine ripened, or you can buy ones that are specifically called vine ripened. And they are much more expensive, but they're also more flavorful. And as a side note, the last gotcha, most tomatoes can't be refrigerated, or you'd start having a genetic response in cold temperatures that ruin the flavor. And so you should keep your tomatoes out on a counter, and they can be kept in a bowl, and use them as you need them, and use the whole tomato. If you only use half a tomato, just eat the other half like an apple, because you don't want to stick it in the refrigerator. It's going to cause the flavor to go downhill. If you're really a flavor aficionado on tomatoes, vine ripened, store them at cool room temperatures in the upper 50s to upper 60s is fine. If it's warmer than that in the room, they're not going to last that long. They'll last for several days, and have at it. Bananas, on the other hand, going back to bananas, they get their flavor components long before they ever are harvested. So it doesn't matter that you buy a banana as green as a Christmas tree. When it turns yellow, it will taste just fine. If you let it get to the point, if you let it get to the color that you like, it will taste just fine, because all of the flavor components are already there long before they're harvested. Very big difference between tomatoes and bananas, and every fruit has its unique characteristics. The similarity, what is triggering that ripening response? Ethylene. So we do have lots of synthetically produced ethylene, as I've already discussed, for commercially manipulating the production process. Synthetic growth regulators. There are many things that you can buy, and some of them ethylene for timing fruit, auxins to control plants, like this 2,4-D. This is a weed killer. What? I'm killing things with a growth hormone? Yeah, you're literally using a high concentration of growth hormone that causes the cells to grow themselves to death. You put them in such a high growth mode that they run out of energy and it kills the plant. And so it is a hormonal growth killer that only works on broadleaf. So you can use this in products like Weed and Feed, where you use it on a lawn. You fertilize the lawn, feed with 2,4-D at the same time, weed. So you kill the dandelions and the other broadleaf weeds while fertilizing your lawn grass, because it only works on broadleaf or dicots. So that's a selective type of weed control. There are defoliants, where you can literally cause plants to drop their leaves. Disbudders, growth retardants, sometimes used in greenhouse crops. Lots and lots and lots and lots of synthetic growth regulators that can be used by our knowledge of hormones and synthetically manipulating those hormones to get the plants to do what we want them to do.